is Alex Riccardi with Bloodline Sports, co-founder, and we are here today with Nick Siaka and TJ Wilcoxon, also co-founders of Bloodline Sports. Here at Bloodline, our objective is to get deserving athletes to the next level, playing sports at the college. We're also here today with Paul Chaves, owner-operator of the Dirtbags, Scottsdale Dirtbags, and the Dirtbag Ranch. We're going to throw it over to TJ. He's going to ask Paul a few questions, and then we got a couple of other things in store for you guys. So TJ, take it over.
Great. Thanks, Paul, for joining us. Appreciate it. We'll be quick with this. I think my first question would be like, what do you attribute the success of the program to? You guys have really, you're known nationally, so obviously you've owned it for several years. And how did it develop into getting all these elite athletes and the success of the program?
Kind of the way that this podcast happened: relationships, ex-teammates, friends, good people around, people who at the very beginning, which was call it 9-10 years ago, we had one team. TJ, one of our old teammates, Bob Brennan, happened to have the son the same age, so now we have two teams. Then another guy that I played with had a son. We have three teams. And it just kind of organically grew. There was never, ever any plan, idea to have 35, 30, 40 teams, whatever it is. We, at the beginning, were hitting in one of our coaches' backyards and had good coaches, good parents, and good players. And it went from, tell people all the time, this is my definition of organic. We don't really market a lot. We don't do a whole lot of these things, except with people who are in our inner circle.
Correct. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's really, you do need to surround yourself with the right people, right? My next question is, there's some really elite athletes that are in the program now. I talked to you last week about some of the schools that these kids are going to. Can you just rattle off just because this shows the success of the program and the attraction of the program, rattle off some schools that you have committed, kids committed to?
Texas, LSU, U of A, ASU, Grand Canyon, Oregon State, Stanford, a lot of the big Power Fives. TJ, you've coached most of these kids. As you know, TJ, that Nick and Alex might not. We kind of took over when my oldest boy was 8. So the 23 class, which is the juniors now, is our highest class. We haven't really gone above that. We've had a team or two above that with, I think, TJ, you put a team together, but I would say our 23 grad class is the class that started this thing. We have multiple players there, 50 to 60 who came through here. So that number is only going to get bigger. But we've got, and I think whoever takes over this program or whoever we leave it to, this program, as long as we put the right people in it, it hasn't even seen its best days.
Nice.
You guys have been around. How long has Bloodline been around?
Year and a half, but really about 6 months, full throttle, about 6 months.
Imagine where you'll be in 10 years.
Exactly. Follow up on that. What's your youngest team?
We have what we call a 7U development team, I'd call it. ZJ, again, through relationships, ZJ Buster, who we brought in, he was an LSU grad assistant. I believe your son actually played for his father in New Orleans, right?
Correct. 3 times, yeah.
So there we go. He runs our youth, does a great job. We've given him the keys to it. I don't even hear about it. So nice. He has a few 9U teams, 2 or 3 8U teams, and a 7U development group where he'll do friendlies. We have we've been able to partner with the city of Scottsdale and obtain a field that, for lack of a better word, I would say is ours. It's the city's, but we have formed a development through the city where we do camps and we do clinics for some of these Scottsdale kids who don't have the club ability to play club, but should not be able to play baseball.
Correct.
So we'll do some camps for them. We'll do some clinics for them. And now, as you guys know, I don't know how California is, guys, maybe you could tell me, but in Arizona, Little League it's tough. I know a few of the leagues now have gone extinct. It's getting more and more harder to fill these teams, and you see these leagues going away. So this particular league went away. So we help pay to maintain the field. But what it does is it gives the youth a field every night to practice on. We scrimmage ourselves. We'll get other teams to scrimmage.
That's awesome.
That's been a big help for that age group.
That's really awesome. Going into, we had mentioned, or you and I had discussed earlier about setting up an entrance and an exit interview, and tell me the purpose of that and what you're trying to achieve with it. With the older kids, I assume, right?
Yeah, and we try to do this every year because of time. It's hard, but I think at this, with this class being the junior class, we're going to try to do. Me and TJ have been trying to figure out how to do a committed team and an uncommitted team. I'll take example for that Lake Point tournament we went to last year, TJ, where I didn't, everywhere you looked was a Power 5 school. Auburn, Alabama, LSU, they're all there. When we're handing them their rosters, a lot of times they would say, who are your uncommitted kids, right?
Yeah.
And we weren't prepared for that. We should have an uncommitted list and a committed list. What I was thinking about after that would be and I'm just going to take example, let's say Alex is a coach at Cal State Fullerton, and I'm taking his Cal State Fullerton kid to this big recruiting trick in Lake Point. Alex probably thrilled about 20 other schools who might need a pitcher, might need a shortstop, had 2 guys go in the transfer portal, 2 guys go in the draft, go to this tournament in front of all these schools. So it would work both ways. We want to work with coaches, right? How many times have we talked about that? Especially you guys. Your business is built on relationships and people trusting you. I just think it'd be better for the program. We may not win as many games, but if we can say we're taking an uncommitted team, that's probably going to make the coaches who have guys within our program committed feel just as good as the coaches who are looking at the uncommitted guys, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's an even playing field. So stuff like that is what we try to talk about all the time in the exit, the enter-exit interview. Me and TJ, and we talked about this too. Do you have the parent there or do you not have the parent there? And put it on the onus of the athlete. What do you want? Alex, what do you want? Would you have left California if the opportunity didn't present itself to play at home? Would you have gone back east? Did you have any other interests? I was telling TJ we had an elite player, who if you would have bet me $1 million, the last thing I thought he would have ever been interested in was food. And he knew what he wanted to do. I want to be a chef. Love cooking. We just knew he could play and run and hit. So now that we know that, UNLV becomes we start looking at some of these schools that have that program. So that was one of the reasons to figure out, put the onus on the athlete. What do you want? Or, and you can chime in anytime, TJ, what don't you want?
Yeah.
Do you not want to go to cold weather? Do you not want to go to JC no matter what? We have an athlete, won't mention his name, who said, I won't go to JC. I won't go D2. I won't go D3. And the reason wasn't because he didn't think that was in a level of good competition. The reason was he was a 4.6 student. He was a genius.
Yeah.
So the more we know, the more you know, the better the better we can put him where he needs to be, not just to a school.
And you've been, because of your success with the Dirtbags, you've developed a lot of relationships with a lot of coaches. I mean, every time I talk to you, I just got off the phone with Michigan State. I just got off the phone with U of A. I just got off the phone with Grand Canyon, ASU, Cal State Fullerton, San Diego State. Just rattle them off. What would you say that how has the pandemic affected that? I think that's my question, of what the recruiting process is now. And because, I talked to Matt Haggerty today with Grand Canyon, and they got 40 kids on the roster, but only a certain amount can be suited up. But I mean, that's a lot of kids at a college campus. So how has it affected, in your mind, how has it affected the recruiting process? And I assume that we'll be back to normal fairly soon, in a couple of years, right?
Honestly, I don't know that I'm equipped to answer that.
Yeah.
Just because, again, this is really the 23 class is our first class, if you will. And we haven't had that pop up yet. TJ, I know your son is a victim, if you will, of that pandemic thing. So from what I'm hearing, it's just numbers, right? They just got more numbers there.
Yeah.
Now you throw the transfer portal in, and you run into, I compare it to club baseball now. If you're not playing for the Dirtbags, let's just go to the Canes. You fill a need, and the school fills a need. You have 2 guys, 3, 4 pitchers drafted. They all go. You need pitching. Do you go to the transfer portal, or do you go to JC? Do you go? I mean, all the high school kids are going to be gone, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to be around.
I mean, I went to a local NAIA game, right after the pandemic, and each team had 45 kids in uniform. And I thought, man, you
can only play 9.
Yeah, right.
Unless the rules changed.
Yeah. So my last question, and I think this is another thing that really separates the Dirtbags, is the ranch. I think that's what attracts a lot of the kids and the parents, that they can go. So give us just briefly, and we're done, and I appreciate your time, briefly what the ranch is all about. I mean, I can tell you and tell the audience that it's a private facility, and I know that there's big leaguers there all the time. If you could elaborate on that, and we'll close up.
Well, that was another thing that kind of just fell in our lap. We were a tenant here initially, and we had a parent group at the time who was interested in doing a cage facility. They were more interested in the business as a non-private, so it would be open to the public, more like, trying to think of the place, TJ, in Irvine, that we used to go to sometimes, but it was not like
Lefevers.
Very, very Lefevers.
Lefevers.
But it was franchisey, right? It was very. They had that business plan in mind, and found out once they were here, this is not what they wanted to do. Luckily, they had several skill sets, very niche ones in the medical field and advertising, and they had other businesses. So they just basically bowed out and said, "Hey, would you be interested in taking over?" Because at the time, their biggest group was ours. We would just pay per team and come in and hit. If the team wanted to hit, we give them a flat rate and we come hit. So that fell into our lap. But as soon as we got it, we just decided, at the time, Doug Newstrom and Eric Carlson and our board, David Schaefer, we decided to we don't really need, if we could break even, we're happy.
Yeah.
And don't want to lose money, but if we could break even, we're happy. And we have enough people at X dollars a month to break even. And if you're not open in the morning, you just condense the hours. It would take less man hours from us. So we changed the name. It had a corporate umbrella before. We changed it to Dirtbag Ranch, and that obviously helped grow teams. I mean, when you can give a place, when you can give players a place to meet, a hub, and then, from what we talked about before, TJ, you've met Juan, obviously. You've met JP, you've met the staff. Juan is incredible. He runs a business in the back. We sublease to him. This goes to what we talked about before, surround yourself with good people.
Yeah.
So Juan is fantastic, and he makes our athletes better.
Well, the cool thing about it is when you walk in, the lobby's real impressive and it's clean and there's pictures all over and your trophies and it's real polished. But it's every time I go, you open that door, you walk in, and it's like time to work and it's time to grind, and it's still clean. But it's like I was telling Nick and Alex about, it's like when you watch like Rocky 3 and you got Drago training all this stuff, and Rocky 2, I don't even know what it was, but like they send Rocky down to this gym in LA to learn how to dance and sweat. And so it's not quite that, it's close, right? Like, that you're there to work. So the environment creates like, there's no messing around. You're there to work, you get in, you get out, and it's just a phenomenal facility. And I think that adds to the attraction of the Dirtbags and getting why you get these elite players in your program. So it's very cool. Anything else you got, Alex or Nick?
Good.
Yeah, let me ask you guys a question before you ask me one. Is, how would you tell me how Bloodline? I have a player who comes in and says, "Coach, I need some help." How would I sell Bloodline to one of our players who maybe is on the cusp of playing college, not playing college, D1, pro? What are the services that you guys could provide for the Dirtbags?
You got that, Alex, or you want me?
Yeah, I think so. Our three pillars are promotion, guidance, and development. So I think as far as the promotion goes, Nick does a great job of getting kids out on social media. We get them up on the website. It's all about eyeballs, right? So that's what we do. We get the name out there. We have other things on the website as far as guidance goes. We got things related to, we're in the works of getting instructional videos on there. We also do a introductory interview, kind of like what you were talking about. What are they interested in? Do they want to go East Coast, West Coast, stay at home, cold weather, warm weather? We talk about, are you at a religious school now? Do you want to stay with that? And our thing is, we can get kids to the next level. A lot of people can do that. We want to get them to the right place, because if we send a kid to a college and he bounces out after a year, doesn't look good for us, doesn't look good for the kid. We've heard of kids have been at 3 schools in 3 years, and that's not a good look for anybody. So we want to find the right fit. Do you want to go to a small city like SC? Do you want to go to somewhere more intimate like Concordia? So really, we do the legwork to find out what the best fit would be. And a lot of that is the guidance. And then as far as the development goes, we're also going to be implementing instructional videos on the website. We're going to have training, arm care, things like that. And then we also have a collegiate league, and we're going to get more into the actual playing of the games and instruction development through that. So I think we cover all 3 aspects, but I think most importantly is you're not just posting your stats on our website. It's going to be a little more hands-on. We're going to talk to you. We're going to interview you. We're going to get to know you. So coaches can see, we know the first, one of the first questions they ask are, what kind of kid are they? What are their grades? How's their family? Then they say, can they hit? How hard do they throw? Because if a kid throws 92 and he's a headache and doesn't get grade. So we want to get to know the kids and make sure they get to the right place, not only for them, but for the school. Our reputation's on the line. So I think we pay close attention to some of the details that maybe some other places don't.
Yeah, it's, at this age when you're interviewing these kids, they, like you say, what do you want to study? And Paul and I talked about this earlier, is like, if you say, I don't know, or what do you want to do? What are your 5 schools you want to play? I don't know. Well, if you don't know, then how are you going to get there? But for example, if the kid wants to be a chef, And Paul says that UNLV and the kid's that good to play there as one of the best culinary schools in the country. Well, that's how what we want to do. So we get to know the player just like what you're doing, Paul, and get them in the right spot. And UNLV's a couple hours away. I mean, an hour by airplane. So his family's close, and so it's just But like Alex was saying, like, can you go to Alabama and play and be away from your family? And whether it's even just an NAI in Alabama, but what we're trying to do is with our interviews with our players is we're allowing recruiters to see the type of person, because they can see if they can play or not, and they know if they can play or not. So they want to see the type of person they are, and that they're committed to not just baseball, they're committed to success in life. So that's what we're trying to push. And honestly, there's certain kids in the program, Paul, that you obviously don't need our services, right? They're that good. So our company is geared towards people like my son that just needs to get out there, because they're not coming to see the kid going to LSU, the kid going to Washington, the kid going to Oregon State. So if we got a younger kid that were to pay for our services and all of a sudden he becomes that kid, well, good for him. But we're trying to get that kid to really that small D1 school, that NAIA school, that D2 school. That's really, and we're trying to funnel a pipeline to about 20 schools throughout the country and show and build that reputation where if I call that coach in Iowa and I say, yeah, he can play third base for you, he trusts me because I've already sent him 6 players. And he knows that we know what we're doing about baseball, and we are primarily baseball. We're 90% baseball, but we work with some other athletes. But I appreciate that question of what we're trying to do and help and promote us. But I appreciate your time. It's probably a little longer than we wanted, but it was a great interview, and we'll get this thing up on TikTok and YouTube and get it on your website as well, Paul. And
yeah, sounds good. I'm sure we'll be working together.
Yeah.
On a couple of these guys. I know we have some athletes in common. So looking forward to doing the next one. Maybe we can have an athlete or another coach on.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah, I think we should do that and maybe get a tour of the facility.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
Thank you, Paul.
Awesome. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
All right, guys. Have a good night.
Take care. Yep.
Bye.